This episode of the Quality Impact Podcast is proudly sponsored by Catalyst Consulting, specialists in Lean Six Sigma, operational excellence, and business transformation solutions. Catalyst Consulting helps organizations achieve lasting success.
Today's world is rapidly evolving, with digital transformation reshaping industries at lightning speed, and quality is more vital than ever. Graham Upton, Technology and Innovation Director and Chief Architect at Capgemini Engineering, joins us to share how to embed quality into research and development while balancing bold innovation in the era of Industry 4.0. In this episode, we discuss building consistent quality cultures across global teams, the role of lean and agile in driving improvement, how to future-proof skills and technology, and why quality professionals must think differently to keep pace with innovation. Welcome, Graham. Your career has spanned multiple industries, from life sciences to aerospace and rail. How has this breadth of experience shaped your perspective on quality in engineering and innovation?
It's really a consistency of approach. I started many years ago now in aerospace. I spent 30 years at Rolls-Royce, which is synonymous for quality. This is building and testing and flying jet engines. And it's incredibly important. I had a particular challenging time where we had a quality failure. It's all in the public domain, but it was known as something called QF32, which is where an engine exploded on an A380 aircraft just taking off out of Singapore. And that basically changed my whole life and my thoughts of the approach to quality. And it was all caused by an undeclared non-conformance at the end of the day. And it really makes you realize that when you're putting people's lives in your hands, when you're designing or developing something, that quality is incredibly important. And since I've been at Capgemini, I've then worked across multiple sectors, as you mentioned. The rail sector in particular, I spent a lot of time in. I'm currently spending a lot of time in the pharmaceutical sector. And quality is incredibly important there. As you can imagine, if we are making drugs that people are taking, like you and me and everybody else watching this podcast, then you know that you've got to be able to have complete traceability that when we manufacture those products, that all the right quality processes are in place. But what I find is the approach across all sectors I've worked in, whether it's the water, the energy, the utility sectors as well, where we've got critical national infrastructure, we take the same approach to quality wherever we go.
But as we say at the CQI, our mission with our Royal Charter is to promote quality for the benefit of society. And in any industry, as you've just shared, it impacts all of us, society at large. It is very important. And the more integrity and trust we have with our procedures and the findings that we want to fix, the better organizations and society can evolve and progress. Capgemini Engineering works at the cutting edge of Industry 4.0. From your perspective, how are digital advances and automation influencing quality assurance and continuous improvement today?
Industry 4 has actually been around for a long time now, many years, but I do believe we're at that tipping point where previously people were playing or dabbling with it. We have many proof of concepts, which show that there is great opportunity, but we often get stuck in what we call pilot purgatory. So we often struggle to take it from the initial value case to something that could be deployed at scale. And therefore, knowing what the business benefits are is often the challenge. And in the quality world, we're starting to see that tipping point now where people are now embracing it more. I think we've gone through that curiosity phase and we're starting to see more and more projects, but we could do so much more. I think the quality professionals are still a little bit concerned about things like the advent of artificial intelligence and automating processes rather than using the tried and traditional approach. So what we do as Capgemini, we try and show that you can provide that balance of bringing in digital advances, but at the same time making sure that we deploy these things safely and very constructively in businesses.
I understand that research and development is central to your role as well. How do you ensure quality is built into research and innovation processes from the very start rather than just being measured at the end?
Yeah, it's a good question because by very definition, research and development is new and novel. That brings its own challenges because it's immature. What we do, though, to de-risk that is we bring learning from other projects or other industries or other sectors. And by applying a structured approach to things like risk management or applying the de-risk early on at the start of the program or the project, then we can start to understand what the impact might be as we move through the project. And as you rightly say, that quite often we get the quality people involved at the end of the process when we have a quality failure. But measuring the benefits is really key to do that early on.
So you start from the benefits, you bring people on board, you deploy the project, and then you measure it again in the end. So it's throughout the whole journey.
Yeah, and I think going back to the requirements is often key, or having very, very well-structured requirements at the start of the project. We often get to the end of a project and the quality people get involved because it's not met, either the design or the manufacturing requirements that were set out at the beginning, because people didn't really understand them, or they weren't flowed down so people understood what was coming down the line. So I think getting the quality professionals involved much earlier on in the processes. The number of launch meetings I've been in where there's been no quality people or professionals in the meeting is staggering. But they should be there from day one, really.
Absolutely. They help simplify those requirements and make sure that they are not just traceable, but testable, that they actually mean something for users at the end that everybody can agree to. I'm in full agreement. You lead teams across multiple geographies and disciplines. What strategies have you found most effective for embedding a consistent quality culture across such global, complex organization?
For me, understanding culture is often the first aspect to consider, because every client, every region, every geography often has its own unique ways of doing things. But at the heart of it, we're all after the same thing. We all want the same outcome. And I think if we can tap into that aspect, and then I find that brings the greatest success if we can relate to people, and then making sure that you foster relationships with people at a professional level, find out more about them. And it often breaks down the barriers, so we're not very much a standoff type of position, that you get to know people. They are more willing and open to work with you than against you. For example, in the 1980s, I used to be a DJ at big nightclubs here in the UK, and then I was talking to a colleague in Spain who was a guitarist in a very popular band over there, and both of us didn't know that, and he just breaks down those barriers. And at the end of the day, we form that understanding, we understand our cultural differences, and then we get the outcomes that we're looking for.
Culture is a very big topic, and there are lots of, as you mentioned, differences in the way cultures treat and deal with certain processes and policies, especially in the work environment. A research a while back, which is Hofstede study, which is a research that's done. His name is Hofstede, the researcher, and he measured the power distance, independence versus individuality versus community in different nations. And that shows you how the level of independence when people in organizations in certain cultures and countries like the UK, the US, Denmark, treat individuality completely different from countries like Japan, China, Singapore, the Middle East, and so on. And that opens up a whole array of nuances which help in building relations with people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the core of that, then having a good process that you can all follow and understanding those subtleties between the nuances of those different cultures and different clients. But at the heart of it, we need a consistent process to follow. But in its own right, we don't want to over-constrain people, because if you over-constrain them, then the best thing we can bring to it is that kind of human knowledge and intimacy. And we don't want to stifle innovation at the same time. So there's a fine balance really to be met between bringing innovation in, but not stifling it, and not over-constraining it, but at the same time, making sure we are following the right process.
You've mentioned innovation, and that's going to be my next question now that you've started it. You did mention early on that it's very important to involve quality professionals because they can help bring in the understanding of requirements, measuring benefits, and with that comes a lot of risk as well. Innovation as a concept also often involves risk. How do you strike the right balance between encouraging bold, innovative thinking and maintaining quality standards?
AI is everywhere at the moment. It's in every conversation, and every CEO wants to see AI being brought into their business and proving the success. But you've got to be careful with that. It's got to be used in the right place at the right time for the right reason. And for me, are our processes ready for AI? Are they actually fighting the implementation, of AI, or is the process, should it be adapted or adopted to include the use of AI in the right situation? So we know we need to have the right guardrails and the right guidelines put in place, but often we'll use the process to say we can't use AI in this situation. But what we should do right at the start is understand how the process may be adapted to include AI to bring the benefits. As I mentioned earlier in this recording, that we don't want to necessarily bring it in if we're in a critical situation, because AI, I'm thinking of things like air traffic control. We work very closely with that industry. Letting AI loose in UK airspace today wouldn't be the right thing. We need to keep the human in the loop, but at the same time, helping things like the air traffic controllers in their role, in their job, is something they're looking to implement. So therefore, using it correctly is one of the areas where we can combine, we can reduce the risk, but we can bring some, let's say, rational risk in, but then balance it with the rigorous quality standards that you mentioned.
And this involves lots of thought process and analysis of the situation, the context you're in, to determine when to keep human in the loop and when to involve AI. How do you identify emerging skills or technologies that will improve quality outcomes in the long term while keeping those differences in mind?
It's very topical as well as AI, because we're starting to use things like image analytics much more in quality these days, especially for quality inspections, because image analytics can see things at the speed and the scale that a human just can't possibly do. But it brings its own real world challenges, such as it can also miss things, because if you put a camera on a piece of equipment that's vibrating, then we might miss something quite critical. Making sure that we have the people with the right skills in the business to understand. I was actually at a digital water academy just 2 days ago with some people in the industry or recently started in that industry, PhD students. And one of the challenges that we spoke about is the skills, and how do we make sure that our next generation of people are coming out of academia with the right digital skills. So we still teach core subjects today, but I'm also working with another client where we are genuinely looking at humanoid robots on the packaging lines of their product. And so they're going to be more repeatable than human. Therefore, you would think that they would reduce quality failures of the humans. But do they have the sense that we have? Skills is a big issue, because it came out loud and clear that we've still got a big skills gap in the country, especially where new technology implementation is deployed.
If we shift gear a little bit and we talk about, because you're engaged with lots of those different projects in testing new technologies as well and bringing AI and upskilling people. But if we talk about lean and agile methodologies or project management frameworks to achieve the intended outcome of those projects, how have these approaches helped to drive better quality outcomes at Capgemini Engineering?
Again, it's fascinating how many times I've used lean approaches or methodologies as part of a program or a project, because the thing that we often forget is, because we get into the detail very quickly, is what value am I bringing? Because where lean and agile methodologies come in is that we can do things quicker, absolutely, but also what's the value? What is the end value I'm really trying to deliver here? What is the client or the best business benefit really starting to look at? So I use value stream mapping a lot, because it identifies the waste quite early on. It understands where processes are maybe not optimal or where bottlenecks occur, which is often the reason why certain failures might be occurring, because you go through several loops or you would need more than 2 or 3 people to make an assessment. So I think understanding the value to the end user, understanding the business benefit is really key here. And making something leaner is ultimately going to save money or cost or simplification, and that supports the overlying business case. And that in its own right then enables these technologies to be implemented, because we can see the return on investment.
So we talk about involving quality professionals from the start, lean, agile methodologies, upskilling people and having a human in the loop while tapping into AI. The industry is facing rapid technological change, and it's faster than we can blink sometimes. What advice would you give quality professionals about adapting their approaches to keep pace with innovation?
So I think always try and stay ahead of the curve, try and do some self-learning and embrace it in a positive way than fight it, because technology will come. I think the other thing that a lot of quality professionals might think, and we see this, it's not just quality professionals, we see this across so many other industries, is that there's a fear of technology coming in and replacing my job or my role. But what we're actually finding is the opposite. It's helping people do their job so much more simply. As a quality professional, how much time do you really spend searching for data or documentation? It can take to get to root cause of a particular challenge. Let's say the machine fails on the shop floor. Getting to the root cause of that particular issue can take hours for multiple people to go and search through maintenance manuals or documentation, or even how the machine's been performing to understand where it fails. It could be a quality failure in a component. Where the technology comes in, it can help me get that information much quicker. And even now, it's then maybe started to use things like machine learning to understand, have I seen something in the past that can then help me understand in the future how to then correct that. And again, we also see that we're so data rich at the moment, and yet we still get repeat non-conformance. So why aren't we taking the technology and understanding how I can go and fix these things if I've seen it multiple times in the past, rather than just redoing the same old thing? So it's a real balance. But yeah, I think for any quality professional to adapt their approach to even understand what AI is. One of the talks I gave recently, that was at the Quality Live event, it was very obvious to me that people don't understand that much about AI. They think they do, and they think they know about Copilot or ChatGPT, but it comes in many different forms. And what we're not doing is we're not teaching that to all of our staff, the people that are needing to use this type of technology. So once people are familiar with it, that fear goes away, and then they can start to deploy and implement it much more easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Graham, this year, World Quality Week's theme is to think differently. It invites all of us to challenge traditional approaches to quality management and embrace new ways of thinking. In your view, how should organizations and individuals think differently in its approach to quality?
I think quality is often the afterthought, rather than bringing it much more forward, either in the design or the manufacture phase of the project. And like I said earlier, how many times at launch or kickoff meetings have I really seen the quality professionals being involved? They often get brought in when things go wrong. So that would be my main message. And maybe think about, again, from a technology perspective, ask the right questions. If rather than it being imposed upon the quality professionals at the end when a project is close to delivery, and then we say, now you've got to use this and learn it, bring people along with you on the journey. So again, it stops the issues that we often face. I've been involved in a number of projects or with clients where their project has simply failed because it's not really got the confidence of the wider workforce, and it's often imposed upon them. And that's often where the biggest challenge occurs. If you can bring the people along with you on the journey. So we're introducing something called a meta-human, and it's really the meta-human there is an avatar where you can interact with it. It can sense what you're saying. It can read your lips, and it can give you advice. It can give you training manuals. It can give you documentation. So there are other ways with technology of interacting with people. But what we do is we introduce that slowly so people can understand. And then they go, oh, wow, if it can do that, why can't it do this? And then they embrace it. So I think that's the kind of the think different in quality theme I would like to bring along this year.
Never be afraid to jump in and try and play with those new initiatives.
Absolutely.
I'm very much conscious of time, and I have so much more questions to ask you, Graham, but I'll end on this. On a personal level, what does quality mean to you as a leader? And has that definition evolved or changed throughout your career in different industries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned earlier about the big quality event I had, and, if I was proved culpable in knowing about that quality issue, I could have gone to jail if somebody was killed or injured, seriously injured. So it brings it into stark perspective. But for me, it's moved very much from something that is often, quality people are often feared in a business. That is an interesting takeaway that I've noticed over the years. Quality people are often feared in a business. That is an interesting takeaway that I've noticed over the years. When people talk about quality audits, it strikes fear into the business and the organization. That's the first natural reaction. But if you embrace it and be ready for it and don't see it as necessary evil, don't wait for the audit to come along and then panic. Be proactive in between, fix issues. I used to walk the floor a lot with my workforce. I used to go and talk to them. I'd ask them what the problems were, what were the issues, did they need help? And then I'd often go away and fix it for them or help them. I would gain so much respect from my workforce because the big boss has come in, he's listened to them and he's tried to do something about it. So for me, embracing quality, go look, see. That is one of the biggest takeaways that I have taken from my career.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Graham Upton, for joining on this episode of Quality Impact. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. Thanks to our producer, Luke Nixon. As always, I've been your host, Rashad Issa. See you next month.